The last time I spoke to my mom, she was sitting by the window watching the rain, and when I asked what was wrong, she just said, "Some storms you have to face alone." I thought she was talking about the weather, but now I know she was talking about herself. Let me tell you about the last time I saw my mother alive. She was sitting by the window in that old living room, the one we both grew up in our own ways. I was born there, and she spent most of her life trying to disappear into it. It was raining hard that day. The kind of rain that makes the whole world feel like it's underwater. I was standing just inside the doorway, shaking off my coat, juggling 2 grocery bags, and wiping my boots on the rug she always told me not to track mud on. She didn't turn around when I walked in. Didn't say, "Hey, sweetie," or "You're early," or anything at all. She just stared out the window, her body kind of folded into the armchair like she was trying to make herself smaller. She had one hand wrapped around a mug of tea. Chamomile, probably. It was always chamomile. I said, "Hey, Mom, you okay?" She didn't look at me, just kept her eyes on the rain and said, "Some storms you have to face alone." I remember thinking she meant the weather. I even laughed a little and said, "Yeah, looks like it's coming down hard." She didn't answer, just blinked slowly and kept watching the rain. And that was the last time we spoke. I didn't stay long. She didn't seem like she wanted company, and I had stuff to do back home. I left the groceries on the counter, made sure her fridge was plugged in, it had been acting up, and told her I'd call in a few days. She didn't hug me, didn't walk me to the door, just looked over her shoulder and said, "Drive safe." I didn't call. Not right away. I kept putting it off. Then the neighbor called me 6 days later. Said they hadn't seen her get the mail. Said the porch light was on in the middle of the day. Said something felt off. I drove back out there, heart pounding the whole way. I knew. Before I opened the front door, I knew. She was in the same chair. Her tea was still on the table. Same mug. Same angle. Only this time, the rain had stopped, and she was cold.
Gone. Just like that.
The coroner said it was a heart attack. No signs of struggle. No pain, probably. I wanted to believe that. I still do.
But part of me doesn't buy it.
Part of me thinks she knew it was coming. That she felt it. That she'd been feeling it for a long time. I started going through her things. At first, just looking for documents, insurance, bank stuff, her will. But then I found a stack of journals in a locked drawer in her dresser. And that's when things started to unravel. One journal had an entry from when I was in high school. Sometimes I hear her crying in my dreams. I never got to hold her long enough. I never got to explain. I just hope she ended up somewhere better than here. I had no idea who she was talking about. Then I found the letter. It was tucked inside an old cookbook, between 2 pages that hadn't been opened in years. The envelope was thin and worn, addressed to her maiden name, the name I'd only seen on my birth certificate. Postmarked from Arizona, from someone named William. The letter was short. "I still think about her. Every year. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted you to know I remember." No date. No return address. Just that. I started digging. I called my aunt, her sister, who I hadn't spoken to in years. When I asked her flat out, "Did Mom have another child?" she went silent. After a long pause, she said, "I always thought she'd tell you herself. Turns out my mom had a daughter before me. When she was 19. She never talked about it. Never mentioned it. She got sent to live with a distant relative in Michigan for a while. To help out. That's what she always said. But the truth was, she was pregnant. And when she came back home, there was no baby. I was born 6 years later. And I guess she thought she'd left all that behind. But she hadn't. She wrote about her daughter, the one she never got to name, in little pieces throughout her journals. Just fragments. One-liners. Bits of grief that didn't have a place to land. She never called her by a name. Always just her. And that line she said to me, that last thing she said, "Some storms you have to face alone." I hear it now for what it really was. It wasn't about the weather. It was about the storm she'd carried in her chest for over 30 years. The guilt. The questions. The silence. The daughter she never got to know, and the shame she never got to shake. She was trying to tell me. And I didn't hear her. After the funeral, I stayed in the house for a while. I didn't have a plan. I just couldn't leave yet. Something felt unfinished. Every room had something of hers, her coat still hanging by the door, her crossword books stacked beside her bed, the faint scent of her lotion in the bathroom. It felt like she might walk back in at any moment. Like, maybe she was just out for a walk. But she wasn't. I kept thinking about that letter. The name William. The way he said, "I remember." I had to know more. So I started going through her things again, more carefully this time. Not just looking for documents, but anything, old photos, receipts, phone numbers, clues. That's when I found the box. It was under her bed, taped shut. Inside were a few baby clothes, a hospital bracelet, and a folded piece of paper with a phone number on it. No name, just the number written in blue ink, shaky handwriting. I stared at that number for a long time. Then I called it. A woman answered. Her voice was older. Not elderly, but definitely past middle age. I froze for a second. Then I said, "Hi, I found this number in my mom's things. I think she might have known you." There was a pause. Then she asked, "What's your mother's name?" I told her. Another pause. Then she said, "Is she gone?"
Just like that.
I said yes. She sighed, not like she was sad, but like she'd expected it. Like she'd been waiting for this moment. Then she said, "I'm her daughter." I couldn't speak. For a second, I didn't even breathe. She told me her name was Nora. She lived in Phoenix. She'd been adopted when she was a baby, but she'd always known she was adopted. Her parents were kind, stable people, and they never lied to her. When she turned 25, they gave her the name of her birth mother, my mom. She never tried to contact her. Not directly. Said she figured it would do more harm than good. But she'd written letters. Sent them to the address she had. Never got a response. And then, out of nowhere, 10 years ago, she got one back. From someone named William. Her birth father. He told her a few things. Not much. That he and my mom weren't allowed to raise her. That the families got involved. That they were both young and scared. That my mom had never gotten over it. Nora told me she only met William once. Said he was distant, careful with his words. Said he was dying. I asked her why she never reached out to my mom. She said, "I thought about it. Every year. Every time it rained." Same words. Exactly the same. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept going over everything in my head. All the little signs I'd missed. All the things my mom never said. And this woman, my half-sister, who'd been living a whole life while my mother sat in silence, holding on to the memory of someone who wasn't lost, just far away. I told Nora I wanted to meet her. She hesitated. Said she wasn't sure. Said she needed time. I told her I understood. We haven't met yet. But we talk sometimes. Slowly. Carefully. Like we're both afraid of breaking something that's already cracked. A few days ago, she sent me a scanned photo. It was a picture of her as a baby, wrapped in a pale yellow blanket. The same blanket that was in the box under my mom's bed. After Nora sent the baby photo, something shifted in me. I started to feel this strange mix of guilt and loyalty. Like I was betraying my mom just by talking to her. But at the same time, I couldn't stop. I needed to know more about Nora, about William, about everything my mom had hidden from me. I needed answers. So I asked Nora if she still had any of the letters William sent. She said she had two. I asked if she'd be willing to share them. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I'll send scans. But you should be ready. They're different from what you probably expect." She emailed them that night. They weren't what I expected. The first letter was calm, almost formal. William wrote about the past, how the decision wasn't theirs, how his parents had made things difficult, how he'd never stopped thinking about the baby. He said my mom was the only woman he'd ever really loved, even though they never got back together. It read like a man trying to clear his conscience. The second letter was different. It was dated 2 years after the first. In it, he said something that stopped me cold. She wouldn't return my calls. Not after I sent the photo. I shouldn't have done that. But I thought she deserved to see her. I thought it would bring her peace. Instead, she hung up. She told me never to contact her again. I'm sorry for opening a wound that never closed. That's when I realized. My mom had known. She hadn't just buried the memory. She'd actively chosen not to reconnect. Even after William reached out. Even after she saw a photo of Nora as an adult. She'd made a decision to stay away. I couldn't wrap my head around it. The next day, I went back through her journals. I read them all again, slower this time. Not just the words, but the spaces between them. And I noticed something I'd missed the first time. A pattern. Every few years, around the same time, late spring, there was a shift in her writing. A kind of heaviness. She'd write things like, I thought I was doing what was right. But what if I was just being a coward? Or, you can't fix something you abandoned. She never wrote Nora's name. But it was clear she was writing about her. And then, I found one entry that wasn't like the others. I saw her. In the store. I don't think she recognized me. But I recognized her. She looked just like I thought she would. I wanted to say something. I couldn't. I froze. I left before she turned around. I read that line over and over. She saw her. My mom had gone to Phoenix. She never told anyone. She stood just a few feet from the daughter. She gave up and said nothing. I told Nora. She didn't believe it at first. Then I sent her a scan of the journal entry. She didn't text back for 2 days. When she finally did, all she said was, I think I saw her too. I don't know what to do with that. 2 people. In the same store. One carrying 30 years of silence. The other never knowing how close she came. And me stuck in the middle of it. A child she chose to raise, while burying the memory of the one she didn't. I started to wonder if she ever felt guilty about that. If she ever looked at me and saw what she was missing. Or if that was the whole reason she couldn't look too closely. Sometimes I catch myself wondering what would have happened if I'd just asked one more question that day. If I'd really looked at her when she said that line about the storm. But I didn't. I smiled, said something easy and walked out. And now all I have are pieces she left behind, ones I can't put back together, without feeling like I'm betraying her all over again. I tell people I'm doing fine, that it's just been a weird year. But the truth is, every time it rains, I hear her voice again and I wonder who she was before she became the version of her I knew.